Now let's talk a little bit about some of the issues faced by the average person at home. And I'm going to toss some questions out that either one of you can answer.
Sure.
So let's say you're just working on your computer at home and you don't know nothing about computers except you know how to browse the web and read your email. And you get an email that says, you know, your account is overdrawn. We're going to have to shut down your account unless you log in and straighten out this information. And how should you respond if you get that kind of email?
So this I believe is called a phishing attack. I'm sure you've got some good experience in this. This is happening more and more frequently. The best thing to do is call the 800 number on the actual .com or .info website, as opposed to any information on what may not be the actual website coming from an email that you receive. So this is a relatively common attack. The objective is to have you call a number that is provided in an email, or to click on a link that is provided in an email that will look like an exact replica. And I believe PayPal is probably one of the more abused. Certainly Wells Fargo Bank may be another. You would never know when you're being phished that this is a replica of a site that's asking you to re-enter your information. By re-entering your information, you're actually giving your information to an evil actor. They then have your username and password, and at that point you've been exposed.
In most web browsers, if you just make the mouse hover above the link without pressing it, but just put the mouse over the link, it'll open up a window which shows you the address that that link is going to go to.
And they're very tricky in the way they mask and disguise what you'll see in that address bar.
Is there anything in the email that would tip you off that this is a fake?
I think it's really a matter of your knowledge. I think you have to have the right software tools running on your devices to actually detect that type of change. You need to have things that will actually go through your email and actually detect for spamming.
Well, for example, if you get an email that says there's something wrong with your account, but the email doesn't contain your name anywhere, like they don't know who you are, would that be a tip-off?
The scary thing is that email is very likely to have your name at this point. With the number of breaches that have happened, my name is probably on 15 different lists, from the Target hack to any number of ones in between. I'm sure my information is available for public download. I'm sure yours may not, but mine certainly is.
Well, mine is actually last week, taking phishing a little bit further and applying voice to it. There's a new hacking method called vishing, which is really phishing, voice phishing. And I received a call about a week and a half ago from the New York City Police Department.
Over the phone?
Over the phone. And then what they did is they ghosted the New York City Police Department headquarters phone number, the 212 number, and left me a voicemail stating that there was a warrant for my arrest. And to call this police officer, but call a 347 number, which is automatically a flag that there's open ISP providers out there, internet service providers, that will actually reroute that call across the internet to overseas locations, everything from Nigeria, Ukraine, Russia, etc. And then you get this really frightening voice that threatens you to cut a check for $2,500 to clear your name.
So a 347 area code might be a tip-off that there's something fishy.
Absolutely it is.
Okay. Identity theft is a huge problem. People get your personal information and then they get a credit card in your name, they spend the money and you get the bill.
Yeah.
That's happened to a lot of people, and it's very expensive to clear your name after that happens. Is there any way to guard against that?
Well, there are quite a few services out there. What was the big one? Maybe you know, the huge television campaign, LifeLock, I believe.
LifeLock,
yes.
But where they guaranteed $1 million if you...
Yeah, I believe the funny thing about LifeLock was the CEO's information actually was taken. So there are services. I don't know how much faith I'd put in any of them at this point. The scary thing is, if your information is taken, if your information ends up in a database, it's not likely or it's not necessary that information is going to be used in the next week or 2 or 3. That can still sit in a repository a year or 2 from now when your identity protection runs out. You're still at risk.
So when someone steals 1 million customer records from Target, let's say, and a few months go by and, gee, nobody's charged anything to your account, you must be in the clear, or maybe you're not quite so in the clear.
You've got a false sense of security at that point, absolutely.
Without a doubt. And what you need to do is you need to actually contact your credit card companies and put in detection against charges. So you can actually create notifications based on a certain dollar amount, for example.
And that's the case where the company is being hacked. You're not the one who's being hacked, it's the company that's being hacked. But is there anything like, you're just sitting on your PC and I recently had my Mac cleaned. It was slowing down. I was told There's a whole bunch of people sitting right on my computer, for different IP numbers that identifies the specific computer it's coming from. And all these people had access to my computer. I had no clue, and I have no idea what they were doing there. But theoretically, they could be doing something malevolent, although I haven't experienced any harm from it. But
that you're aware of. There's potentially they've accessed any data on your machine. It's possible that they've accessed your webcam and have seen anything that's come through that. You have to imagine that anything that laptop touches or comes in contact with, you're exposed to, and treat it accordingly.
Yeah. Now, I understand that Google has a new search thing where you can search by voice. You say, "Okay, Google," and now it'll listen to your voice, or anything else you say. And once you turn that on, I think it might stay on, so whatever you say is being picked up. Not that anybody at the other end is listening to it or making notes or anything like that, but what you're saying could be reaching beyond the confines of your living room or your office. Wherever
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think what people in general do, though, is they use their computer at home as a utility, right, to access the internet, maybe to make calls and things like that. But what they don't do is necessarily the maintenance on the device. And that maintenance requires you, for example, to go into your web browser, clear your cache on a regular basis so that your information doesn't continually get stored there. Make sure that your passwords are cleared, things like that, because people can steal that information from you.
And most people would never know how to do that unless they have some computer background. Maybe they'll call tech support and they'll say, you have to clean your cache and here are the steps you have to do it.
Well, another simple and scary thing is you have an old computer, you give it away. It's very likely that any bit of data that's on that old computer can be restored and recovered as well. So you either want to make sure that you're doing massive overwrites on that drive, or the way we do is we drill holes through the hard drive. And
we took hammers on a hard drive.
Hammers
and that's basically
too.
what we do.
Sure.
Because even if you delete something, it's not necessarily deleted because you have a system of indexes and pointers. So you have a pointer to a certain file. Maybe when you say delete, all it does is zero out the pointer, but the data is still there.
Data's still there.
If someone could find a way to do it.
Yeah, you need some pretty good magnets and things like that to destroy the hard drive.
Is there something about our culture? Is it that, like, we're not raising people to be honest enough that people say, well, I could make more money being a thief than being honest? I mean, is it a purely technical problem, or is there some societal, ethical kind of problem that makes this so troublesome?
I think we've grown up a bit with a false sense of security, where we haven't really understood the way people want to attack our way of life in this country. And I think that's what's driven a lot of these hacking events, a lot of this corporate reputational issues, things like that, and with your own sabotage, your own employees, things like that you have to be aware of.
Yeah. And part of it is people will steal your money, or they'll just do malicious damage, and part of it is they're going to shut down the power grid. They're going to like an act of war against the entire country. And of course, we have the capability to do it as well, but still, there's like a whole arena like that just as important as tanks and airplanes, because everybody's dependent on the internet. Sure. The internet controls the infrastructure of everything, and it's relatively unprotected.
And consider this, 10 years ago, there were probably 1/10 to 1/20th of the amount of devices on the internet, if not a lesser percentage, maybe even 5% of what we have today. And with the advent of the Internet of Things, as we go forward into 2016, you're dealing with millions, tens of millions of new devices that are going to touch that internet with open Wi-Fi and things like that. They're going to create additional risk.
So it's partially the rapid growth of the internet and the fact that it's expanding so rapidly, which creates so many new targets for stealing stuff.
Yeah, I think that's appropriate.
Well, one other point too, I think the proliferation and ubiquity of tools that allow less than skilled hackers to perform some pretty dangerous functions and cause some pretty serious damage, certainly a consideration as well.
And on that not too cheerful note, we are going to have to wrap the show because we are out of time. I'd like to thank my two guests, Chris Porter and David Shefter. We've been talking about cyber threats and cybersecurity. Visit our website, www.futuretalk.net. For Future Talk, I'm Marty Wasserman, and we'll see you next time.